is the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Health and Human Services, the Ministry of Trade and Commerce, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Arts and Culture, the Ministry of Science and Technology. And the one that I have been spearheading, and and everybody in the LOC have been supporting this, is the Ministry of Health and Human Services. And under this ministry, we took on the issue of the MMR shot, measles, mumps, and rubella shot. We took it on based on a study that was done in Atlanta by the scientists at the Centers for Disease and Control. And it was a study that was done in 2004. And that study revealed that if black boys under the age of 36 months are given an MMR shot, they had a 234% increase of developing autism. And what was wrong about that study? It was good, but what they did wrong, they did not reveal the results, and they did not go as far as to study and talk about why was it such an increase in black boys.
Right.
So we took that on. We had a big town hall meeting, almost 1,000 people out at Mos Mariam, and we had some of the scientists, one of the scientists that was involved in that, and one of the producers that was involved and still involved in the movie Vaxxed. And if people are still interested in finding out about this study, they can Google Vaxxed, V-A-X-X-E-D. So we took that on, and we were very successful, and it's still ongoing because we're still trying to get the information out to our brothers and sisters about the dangers of the MMR shot. Those shots are dangerous, and we're still saying to the community, do not give your children this shot.
We are sitting here live in the studio with members of the local organizing committee for the Justice for Us movement, and we're discussing the work they have been doing and continue to do and will continue to do. We're certainly open to your phone calls. Feel free to join the conversation. 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690. We will be bringing other members from the organization as well via telephone here shortly. Brother Troy, I want to ask you, because you are one of the members in the local organizing committee who actively participates in many different ministries simultaneously. Now, they all work together for common purposes, but you have your hand in so many different things. And how does that work together? Talk to us about how all these things work together for common causes.
And I guess, my bias, as Brother Phil mentioned earlier, is at the root of everything. The most important institution in our community, of course, is education. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the call that was made, even going back to 10-10-15, or even prior to that, the condition that our people are in is based on what information is going into their minds. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that he who prescribes the diameter of your knowledge dictates the circumference of your activity. Yeah. So based on the knowledge that we have, based on the information that we have, based on the system of education that we currently have, is going to determine what our people are able to produce for themselves. So that touches all of the ministries. I guess that has been the reason why I've touched on particular ministries, because I see the importance of the interconnectedness with it, and particularly with the Ministry of Health, as I've worked with our sister in dealing with the vaccinations that are being made mandatory in the school systems. Ministry of Information, the distribution of information and how important that is, what information and how we disseminate information throughout our community. All of those things are important. Brother Phil and I actually, and we talked about it again, we did the Black Ed Talks, and part of what was discussed in that, just really looking at, we really have all that we need in our community to do what we need to do for ourselves. We just have to stop looking at other people. And then once we take the responsibility for ourselves, we'll see that as you go across all the ministries, we have experts in all of those areas. And if we just begin to make the commitment to ourselves, we can see that we have the ability to provide the needs that we keep asking others for.
We talk about taking ownership of the community. Toussaint, you have been someone who I've seen do that on so many different levels when it comes to organizing the community, getting out in the community, doing things for the community, whether it be standing with the brothers who are actually doing the shooting and the drug dealing and being shot. I've seen you in film documentaries at hospitals with gunshot victims and literally putting yourself in the middle of these situations and trying to quell some of the violence that exists in our communities. I've also seen you organize on political fronts and getting many different important people to sit down at the same table to come up with a plan to try to address some of these issues. What does that come from in you to say, you know what, I'm not going to look this on the outside source. I got to do this myself, and if I literally have to do this myself, I will.
Because I don't prescribe to none of the existing narratives. It's really as simple as that, right? I think you are open to show up with the quote from Neely Fuller that says, until you fully understand white supremacy, everything you think you understand will only confuse you. My godfather, Walter Beach, put me onto that book, right? Mm-hmm. And at the minute I read that quote, it was life altering, right? Because it puts in perspective that everything that we identify is through the lens of white supremacy. Yeah. Everything we identify with is through the lens of white supremacy. And once you separate yourself from that thought process, you kind of operate or emanate a space of love, right? So when you say I put myself in these predicaments or in these positions, I don't put myself in anything. Okay. This is my community. I'm supposed to be there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Sure. They just, the young brothers that shooting up the block, they're still just young brothers. You know what I mean? I don't have no fear of them. No. So I move in a manner that makes them my young brothers and not my enemy or the guys. You know what I mean?
I absolutely know what you mean. I want to ask you this, if I can. Coming with that perspective, is it, if you have that perspective, I'm certain that you understand that other people who don't yet have that perspective, haven't quite seen that light to say, you know what, I am viewing this whole thing through the lens of white supremacy, and therefore I do not understand when a brother like Toussaint comes and says, hey, we're doing this thing all wrong, we can do it right, we have to do it this way. How do you not get frustrated or, how do you not get frustrated and stay motivated when you encounter so many people who are feel defeated, for lack of a better term?
Because love is selfless, brother. Love is selfless. It's really that simple. And that doesn't mean I don't get frustrated.
Yeah, for sure.
It just means I'm motivated by love. And there's a difference, right? When you're motivated by love, there's nothing that can stop you.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. I want to get to the phone lines and bring some of our callers in and some other members of the Justice or Else local organizing community. Let's get in, Brother Fellows. Brother Fellows, how you feeling this evening?
Yeah.
Brother Fellows, thank
Thank
you so
you,
much for
Brother
calling and giving us
Fellows.
some of your time and sharing all the information with us and all those great works. We really appreciate it. Susan, I want to ask all of you all if we can, how do we keep the momentum going? When we have things like the McQuan McDonald, or we have a Black Friday, or we shut down MagMal, and we can get so many other people who aren't active on a daily basis in the fight, how do we keep them engaged year round?
We have to keep doing the work. I just want to say this, white supremacy is never going to go away.
No.
It's not going to go away. But under these 9 ministries, you have, it would involve every problem that we are experiencing as Black people in this country and around the world. The thing I like about what we're doing with Justice Else is the fact that we are action oriented. We are action oriented. There's no need to continue to talk about the problem and you're not doing something about the problem. Brother, you asked the question of Brother Toussaint. What do you do when you find people who don't know what you know? That comes under the Ministry of Information.
Indeed.
It is our responsibility to continue to teach our children, teach our people, take the information to our people. We can solve these problems that we have. We just got to believe in ourselves. And because no one is going to do it for us. Under the system of white supremacy, they want us to be where we are. It's up to us to change our condition, and we can just get involved. You know, there are 26 letters in the alphabet. If you throw up all 26, whichever one you come up with, you can start a movement around that. Make yourself a committee of one. We are powerful. We just got to believe that we're powerful. We can do whatever we want to change these conditions that we're under.
Well, I have a question for Brother Troy. If someone wanted to become involved, if someone wanted to connect to the Justice for Us Committee, how would they do it?
Well, one way is, of course, coming out on 7351 South Stony Island at the Muhammad University of Islam on Wednesdays at 7:30.
Is it only for Muslims?
It's 7. I'm sorry, at 7. It's not just for Muslims. It's for those who are concerned about the condition of Black people and believe that there's something that has to be done. There's also a website, chicagojusticeoils.com. We encourage you to visit that. But yeah, it's definitely not just for people who are Muslims. It's for people who are concerned about the condition of Black people.
And people who love Black people.
I want to bring in Sister Sharonda. She's been holding very patiently. Sister Sharonda, how you feeling this evening? Sister Sharonda, you take it. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. What's on your mind? Absolutely.
So, not to cut off to Sharon, I want to kind of go back to that last question too, right? You said, how do we stay motivated? And I think what we gotta understand that there's a narrative being created and it confuses us as well.
True.
Right? So I think most times we don't even understand what racism is ourselves. Right? So we look at racism as somebody not liking us. And that's just not true. I really could care less if someone doesn't like me. Right? So the reality of racism is, it's a race.
Mhm.
It's a race to resources,
Mhm.
right? So I've stopped, I don't get mad at it. I understand it, you know what I mean? So you say, how do you stay motivated? If you're not in the race, you're guaranteed to lose.
For sure.
Right, so that's the motivation. As long as I'm gonna have a lineage, as long as my children are gonna be having children, and my gene pool is gonna be born, we got to compete. It's just the reality of the situation.
And I hear you guys talking about the unity piece, and I hear you talking about, Sister Sharonda was saying about the misinformation, the same thing that you were saying, Sister Doris, that information is key. And you were talking about this race and race to resources, and it's not something to be misunderstood, it's not something that's so mind-boggling. If you really just think about it, if you and I take over a brand new strip of land, we go out here and take over this strip of land, and you and I, we kill everybody that's there, or we get rid of them, and now me and you own it, and we make up all the rules for it. Those rules are gonna benefit you and I greatly from now until the end. And anybody who is not like us, those rules are not gonna benefit them. It's a very simple thing. It's not something that any other person perhaps would not do or anything like that. We have to understand that. And so when you understand that, then you can start to understand that, like Brother Troy was saying, these education systems that were designed back then, they aren't for our benefit.
No.
These vaccinations that they're giving aren't for our benefit. And once you can understand that, then you have to say, okay, I understand that piece. How do I take control of it and say, I can take ownership of this, I take responsibility for this, I hold myself accountable for what my children are learning and what information is being given out to my community. And that is where the LOC comes in, to make sure that everybody can get that information, and then we can be actionable behind it.
And just going back onto that question, as Brother Toussaint mentioned, and he always talks about controlling the narrative, is I think one of the challenges of keeping us motivated is sometimes, you use the example of a race.
Yeah.
If you've ever ran track, they tell you don't run to the finish line, you gotta run beyond the finish line. And I think sometimes we look at these short things that come up, not to devalue them, but we look at issues as they arise and put our attention so much on that issue and not beyond the issue. So we look at things, instance of the police brutality, and we find another episode that comes up, and sometimes we put our attention on there, not looking that there's a systematic problem with the police department, if we're hearing issues or not. So we have to definitely look beyond those issues and utilize those to motivate and energize people, but definitely move beyond those.
And we have to stop people from co-opting the narrative. A good example of what's going on with Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Trump comes on and he says it's about the flag and the anthem.
Right.
It is not about the flag and the anthem. It's about the killings of black men and women in this country. And here again, we have to take back the narrative, because we've allowed them to take Trump's narrative and run with it. So we have to keep our narrative focused, because under the system of white supremacy, that is one of the games that they play.
Yeah.
Their game is to take over the narrative and make it sound the way they want it to sound, and mean what they want it to mean.
Sister Sharonda, I thank you for calling in. Brother Jason, if you want to add any comments before we move on to some more calls, I want to get you in here as well. Our pleasure, thank you. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate the call. Thank you all so much for your time. We just had Brother Minister Jeffrey Muhammad come in and join us. Made it on over. We really appreciate you coming through. We certainly don't need to bring you up to speed on the conversation or anything, but just want to bring you in. How you feeling this evening, first of all?
I'm blessed. Thank Dr. Phil and yourself for having us on the show.
Absolutely. No one speaks on this topic quite as passionately as you do. So just want to give you as much time as you'd like to speak on it, and we'll get to some more calls. We got Minister Plump and Milton Taylor as well. We'll take some more calls at 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690. We are joined live in the Xfinity Studios here at WVON Radio 1690 to talk of Chicago with the local organizing committee of Chicago chapter of Justice or Else Movement. Mr. Jeffrey Muhammad.
My passion comes from the passion of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As a young man growing up in Gary, Indiana, and being born in the South in Kentucky, in response a little bit to the caller before, we are victims, we have been victimized, but yet we must assume leadership. And we're the only people in the history of this country that have to be leaders in the process of being victimized. Most people revolt, free themselves, and then establish removing the victimization. We're a nation within a nation. In trying to be free, we're still fighting for freedom, not in a non-traditional sense, but in another sense, not with chains on our hands, but chains on our brains. And we've been so victimized that the average black does not realize that they're still enslaved. So when we see a Brother Colin, we galvanize for that, for the need, but we don't galvanize to take the stand. And I think Brother Toussaint said it earlier, we come out in droves for the murders. However, we don't realize that our victimization runs so deep that it's because of white supremacy that causes us to murder ourselves. And our lack of education, our lack of health, the disparity in economics causes all of the cancers in the black community to continue to fester. We're not ready to address that. So when the minister says separation or death, people, when they hear the term separation, they're hearing let's go away to another country, let's go back to Africa. Those who would like to go back to Africa, God bless you, but we're in no means saying let's leave a place that we built. Our communities are already separated. Our schools are separated. The hospitals we go to are separated.
Thanks.
The restaurants we use are separated. Our churches are separated. It's just that others have separated themselves from us. We're the only race of people that are begging for inclusion with everything that is detrimental to us. Chinatown is predominantly Chinese and no one considers them racist that they have their area of town. And I would like any caller to tell me what schools are there in Chinatown that the majority of us can even get into. What hotels are there in Chinatown that we go to? Name one black restaurant in Chinatown. Is that racist or is it just common sense? So when we say let's build and establish our neighborhoods, we're considered racist, we're considered anti-establishment. No, we just want to be considered human.
Perhaps we are the only people who are not racist. And I mean that in the term of just being pro-Chinese or pro-white or pro-Hispanic. And it's not enough pro-blackness. And you look in our communities and you see so many different other people getting rich out of our communities. It's almost as though we are the only people who don't see the value in our communities. Other people come in and they get rich in our communities all the time. Why don't we see that same value?
I don't know if that's true though.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I think what we gotta understand is that wealth calcifies, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta understand the whole dynamic.
For sure.
Right, so when you take away, I just read a statistic not too long ago that said you take away the family car, the median net worth for black families is like a little more than $1,700. Right, so we had this concept that we're crabs in a barrel, right? And we think of the crab as pulling the other crab down to not see him prosper. But in reality, the crab is just trying to get out of the hot water. We're all in hot water. There's a difference between not supporting your brother and just trying to get out of the hot water. Right, so that's what control of the narrative really is. We got to stop seeing our people as pulling us down. Everybody's down.
Everybody.
And we got to be honest with ourselves. We're all down.
That's right.
And when everybody's down, everybody's trying to get up. So that's what control of the narrative means, though, right? So we stop thinking at our brother as our competition.
Yeah.
Right? So when we even speak in those terms, we got to say, no, man, it's just hot water. Right? It's hard for us to make an investment when there's nothing to invest. You understand? We don't put that in perspective, right? Any investor, any businessman knows you're going to lose. You come to the table with that concept. I'm going to take some losses to get to the win. We take a loss we bury ourselves. We can't afford to take the loss, but we gotta change the narrative, right? So if that's not the case, if we can't operate in the financial capacity straight out the gate, then we must adjust our thinking. And it goes back to the conversation of love. We got to operate in the space of love. I'm doing this out of love. I'm gonna deal with bad service out of love. I'm paying a little more money out of love.
Yeah.
And when we change that philosophy, our opportunities change.
And you know, and when they criticize us, when we say we want to have our own businesses in our own community, we must understand that they criticize us because they know when we do that, we're taking those dollars away from them. That's how they come into the community, they take the money, and they go back to the suburbs. And so that's why they attack us. I remember when Minister Farrakhan talked about in DC, some of the representatives called him in to talk about setting up a black town in DC. And they were attacked by the Arab community simply because they know that those dollars were going to be taken away from them and given to us. So that's another reason why they attack us so viciously when we try to do that.
Very well said. I want to get back to the phone lines and try to get through these calls before we get back and give all of you guys a chance to wrap up for the show. Let's get Minister Plump in here. Minister Plump, how you feeling this evening? Minister Plump, you with us? Well, that signal's on, sir. Minister Plump. It's all right, brother. I can listen to you go on forever, but I do want to get to some more calls. We got about 12 minutes. We got to wrap up the show. So I thank you so much for calling in and sharing the information as always. Indeed. Thank you so much. Milton's on line 4. Milton, how you feeling this evening? We're excellent. What's on your mind?
Thanks, Milton.
Mike is in St. Louis. Mike, what's on your mind?
We,
Brother Mike, I got your point. I want to give our panel a chance to respond to you. Thank you. Mike, I got your point. I want to give our panel a chance to respond to you. Tucson, you? I'll tell you what, Mike, you call our show every week, and certainly you hear us talking about and supporting Brother Colin Kaepernick. You talk about us not watching the NFL. You can
our
look at the
children
ratings.
writing letters, our
Right.
children taking a knee. Yeah.
We've seen the ratings be affected.
I think the community supports Cap wholeheartedly, but I think he answered his own questions, right?
Yeah.
We don't control the platforms that he's watching,
That's correct.
right? And then, again,
That's
who's
it.
listening to the narrative
That's
that
it.
they're presenting him,
That's it.
right? So again, like Brother Jeffrey said, it's separating ourselves from that narrative. I wouldn't know what those narratives say, because if I'm really supporting Cap, I'm not watching Sunday anyway.
There you go. Brother Manson, how you feeling this evening?
Okay.
We got it. Excellent, brother. What's on your mind tonight?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Brother Manson.
Anybody want to speak on it?
Yes, sir. We've had, if you can Google it, you have over 50 major corporations that in the last 2.5 years have had to close on an average of 100 stores just based on the 10-10-15 call for Black Friday, boycotting Black Friday. And the billions of dollars that have been lost because black people decided not to spend their money in big dollar stores that have not aided us. Can we quantify it? I'm quite sure we had someone came to the meeting that was on Wall Street. They gave us the statistics, and you can come on one of the meetings and we can provide that. But you can see the multiplicity of stores that are closing. But the most important thing is our people becoming conscious enough to first buy black, then go somewhere else. Our target is not just to stop buying there. Our target is for us, for our dollars to circulate in our neighborhoods first.
It's much more about redistributing those dollars than it is about shutting those other ones down. I mean, that's a part of it, but what we do with it is just as important. I want to get back to the phone calls. We can try to get as many in before we can, before we got to wrap up. Lisa's been holding patiently. Lisa, how you feeling this evening? We're excellent.
I just wanted to piggyback off of the young lady talking about the MMR vaccine. What a lot of people don't realize is those are neurotoxins. I'm a former public health nurse, and I just studied the vaccine, and I am not a vaxxer. I don't believe in vaccine. I don't even believe in flu shots because I think that your body has its own immune system to take care of you. And so, you know, how the public schools and all of the schools, including the universities, are trying to force people to take vaccinations. And I think I know the law. I know what the law says. We don't have to, but I think more and more people should be educated on the vaccine and vaccine course, because kids are being injured from vaccines every single day. And if the parents don't know any better, they can't do any better. And so, you know, I think they just go along with what the school says, what's mandatory for the school is not mandatory.
Lisa, thank you so much for calling in and sharing that information. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, just getting that information out there. Dave, Art has been holding patiently as well. I'll get to Art and I'll get to Dave, and then we got to wrap up the show. Art's on the south side. Art, what's on your mind? Not too much. How you feeling? so much. And those training centers and central locations that you're speaking of is exactly what the LOC gets done on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. Dave, you're our last caller for the evening. What's on your mind?
Thank you for taking my call. Thank you for playing Billy Fuller Jr. and thank y'all for being on there. Justice or else is the name, is the end result, and the counter to white supremacy racism. And I just want to say to your sister, at one time they didn't think they could have supersonic aircraft, but now they have the SR-71 Blackbird. It's retired now, but it's multiple times the speed of sound. And, it's just a change in the fuselage that allows for supersonic flight. So racism will be and is going to be undone through justice, producing justice, guaranteeing no one is mistreated, and guaranteeing those that need help the most get the most constructive help. God bless y'all, and I love what y'all doing.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Thanks for the call, Brother Dave. I want to go around the table and give all of you guys a chance to put a ball in the conversation, if we will. Sister Doris, I'll start with you.
As I said earlier, we know the problems. It's time for us to get up and lead and do something about the problem. Become action oriented. Stop sitting back and listening and complaining. Let's get involved and do something about the issues that are facing us. Be action oriented. I love when Minister Farrakhan always says that God is in us, and He is in us. So if God is in you, and you have the love for your people, love for justice, get up and get involved. Make yourself a committee of one. If you don't want to come out to a meeting, just make yourself a committee of one. We meet every on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. Come out and get involved. We need your help.
Thank you so much, Sister Doris. Brother Joy.
Going back to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said that separation is the best and only solution. And of course, we talk about that on a physical level, but as we talk and discuss white supremacy, we have to separate our minds from white supremacy. We have to separate ourselves from all of these institutions that historically have not been beneficial to ourselves. And if we see that what we tried has not worked, this is now the time and opportunity for us to get up and do something for ourselves.
Thank you so much, Brother Trey. We really appreciate your time. Brother Tucson Warner.
Essentially, man, I think even when listening to most of the calls, what I want us to fully grasp and understand is that freedom isn't free, right? I think we have to accept some level of discomfort to get to the promised land. We got to let go of our fear of discomfort.
Yeah.
Right? Because on the other side of discomfort is prosperity.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we approach the game from that vantage point, right? It's through the struggle that you grow.
Yeah.
And we got to want to grow.
Nothing more discomfortable than the history that we've experienced in this country. So we are willing to experience just a little bit more discomfort to see a better side of it. And what are we fighting for? Minister Jessica Muhammad.
Let us redistribute the pain. Up with Jesus and down with Santa. Instead of spending money this fall, going into the winter, for a holiday that makes no sense. Keep your monies. Keep your monies in your pocket. Spend at black stores. Spend in the spirit of Jesus Christ. Do not spend in the spirit of a Santa Claus, some fake white person coming down the chimney giving your children gifts. You're giving your children gifts. Let them know that comes from your pocket. But give it in the spirit of the Savior, Jesus Christ.
Thank you so much to all of our callers. Thank you to every single member of the local organizing committee of the Justice or Else movement. For Philip Jackson, for our super producer, Mr. Isaac I.T. Taylor, I am Herb Howard. You all have an amazing evening.
Thank you.
Get that voice down, brother.
Very good.
Excellent. Can I take